This week on ETTO Sidequest, Josh went to Japan and he got married, I guess. Hello everyone and welcome back to ETTO Sidequest, episode number, I'm scrolling down to find out real quick.
Is
5.
it 4? 5?
Episode number 5.
Episode 5.
Yeah, that's 5 more than we made of any other podcast. That's not true. Anyway, before I dig that hole too much deeper, I'm Ben.
I'm Josh.
And we're back after a little bit of a hiatus. Well, we did have a podcast come out semi-recently, but there was not the regularity of content. We just had one beefy one come out. And why was that, Josh?
That was a beefy one too.
Yeah?
Because at the top of the pod, you mentioned I went to Japan. Mm-hmm. But before that, I guess I also got married.
You also got married.
That's right. So I have a new housemate. Lives with me forever now.
Yeah.
She cannot escape. And yeah.
What's she doing right now?
We did a stream last week. I believe she's setting up her Seek and Indeed page so that she can find a job in the area, because she left her job before we got married because it would have been probably a 2-hour commute each way. Which is not worth it for about 5 hours of work.
Yeah.
3 days a week.
Deeply riveting stuff.
So find something out here instead. Yeah.
Deeply riveting.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, that's great for you and for your partner, Max.
Thank you, Ben.
But what hasn't been great is that video games kept on going while you were away. Like,
they did.
Not only did they keep on going, they hit probably the biggest release period, bar in a couple weeks' time of the year.
That's right. This month is crazy, but yes.
Yeah.
The week leading up to me getting married and then leaving was Starfield release.
Yep.
As well as Sea of Stars release.
Yep.
Which I did play a bit of and I'm keen to get back to, but we'll talk about more about that later.
Yeah, totally.
At a later month.
We will definitely talk about it a bit later in this podcast, but we are planning to do a bigger pod on Sea of Stars at some point. Yes. Josh obviously hasn't had much of a chance to play it. I haven't played much of it yet either, because I've been playing other games, which we'll get to. But yeah, we are both very excited for that game and keen to jump back in, but it's just going to take a bit more time because it's a 30-hour game. The other thing about all these games, they're just all so long, Josh. They're all so long.
They're huge. They're all just massive RPGs.
None of these games are short. And as someone who has been still living, not in Japan, just like trying to organize myself to play all these games, let me tell you, it's not been easy. We'll get to more of that. But first up, before we talk about like games we've been playing and all that stuff, as we might do, we have a segment that we like to call the Bulletin Board.
Love that sting.
Yeah, it's a great sting. One day I'll get them loaded into OBS, but today was not that day, so we're just imagining them. If you didn't know what the bulletin board was, think about the name. What does a bulletin board have on it generally? A little bit of news.
A little bit of news.
And Josh is in desperate need of a bulletin board for...
I need to be caught up. Yeah. I was so off the grid, except for, I think, one piece of news that you have for me today. But maybe you can give me a little bit more info, because I'm still not entirely caught up. I just know that it's
totally
semi-resolved.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, Josh and I normally pick like one little news article, often like a fun little one to talk about for this segment. Josh doesn't have anything because, as we've established, I have a fun little article to chat about afterwards. But before we do that, I'm going to run Josh through, I called it the super fun rapid fire news Josh missed.
Nice.
But it's just going to be major news. I didn't pick every news article of the past month and a half to give to Josh. Yes. But there's been a few major things that have happened. Probably, let's start with a fun one. So there was another Nintendo Direct, which normally you and I love to react to live. You actually made it to this one as well, live from Japan. It was crazy.
I did. How did that go?
It was quite funny. Look, awesome. By the time we got to the end of the stream, the bit of me bringing you up was maybe reaching its end, but like it was a good fun time. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed chilling in chat by myself with you kind of there. And yeah, it was a pretty decent Nintendo Direct. Surprised it happened. Because
it did seem to come out of nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah, and we kind of talked about the last Nintendo Direct that it's seeming like the end of the Switch. Felt like the next one might be like alluding to the next Switch or something, but they always tend to do one in September, and they managed to like just fill in. This is very much, almost definitely that last little batch of stuff before we get to the end. But yeah, I'm gonna go over to a great summary from the website. Oh, where's my article gone? Oh no, hang on. Josh,
Hello.
Vamp.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh. You may wonder why we asked you to come here today.
And it's to talk about the Nintendo Direct because I did it.
Yeah, it is.
Shout out to Press Start, who did a lovely breakdown of all the stuff that happened. So I'm just going to I'll bring it up on the screen. I'm going to scroll through their article and run Josh through a pretty quick fire. We're not going to watch all the trailers like we did for Gamescom. Just a quick fire, what went on. So everything announced at the September 2023 Nintendo Direct by Harry Kalagiru. Thank you, Harry. The biggest one at the top, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door getting a remake, a full remake. Cool. Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah,
I never
classic,
played that one.
the classic on GameCube that is many people's like obviously favorite Paper Mario game is like the most well-known one.
Yes.
Getting a full remake. It looks delightful. It's all like prettied up with new graphics and stuff. So very cool.
Good. Nice.
Very excited for that. That one's coming in 2024. This was like one of the few that didn't have like a set date. So it's just sometime in 2024.
Sometime next year.
That was the last thing of the Direct, which was a bit weird for me who didn't know what this game was. They would put a Paper Mario at the end as their one more thing. And I was like, I don't know what this is. And then everyone was like, it's Thousand Year Door. It's a big deal.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
Cool.
And then at the previous Nintendo Direct, you might have remembered there was a Princess Peach game, Josh.
Yes.
And
we got
Princess
more?
Peach, we have a full trailer of it, and it's coming out on March 22nd. And let me tell you, this game looks pretty sick. I'll skip forward to some gameplay.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's basically seems like to be a side-scrolling platformer. And Peach gets differing kinds of abilities. So she starts off just in her like normal outfit, but then she picks up these power-ups, and she becomes I'm trying to remember what she becomes.
Elephant.
Not an elephant. That's a different game. In this one, she's like a fencer, sword fighter Peach.
Yeah, nice.
And then we've got Detective Peach.
Detective.
And then we've got
Baker.
Kung Fu Peach, I think. Was this one?
Kung Fu Peach.
Or something like that. Martial Artist Peach. Baker Peach. So yeah, basically it's called Princess Peach Showtime, and it's a bunch of different Peach outfits. It actually looks really good. I kind of like skipped through the gameplay, but it
kind of looks like it's meant to be a stage production.
Yeah, totally. I think that's kind of the idea they're going for. Is it's like
the visual theme.
Yeah, it's a stage production, but she's like actually like living in it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it looks quite fun. Reminds me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I just saw there's a spotlight on her all the time.
Yeah, totally. It reminds me.
It follows. That's cool.
It honestly reminds me of Sackboy's Big Adventure quite a bit. That kind of game.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, keen for that. That's coming up March 22nd. And then we are going to start going quick now. There's a Mario vs Donkey Kong game that was on the original Game Boy.
Right.
That is apparently a puzzle game. I thought this was a brand new game, but no, this is just a puzzle game that they are remaking on February 16th. Again,
wow, that's is this the graphical? Like, is this what the graphics going to look like?
I think this is like the trailer. It does kind of look as good as the movie, to be honest.
It does.
But yeah, it's a game.
Yeah, that's a cool update from that's a total remake.
Yeah. There's a lot of total remakes they're doing. Splatoon 3
that's amazing.
Got DLC, which the video is privated for this one. But it seems to be like a roguelike Splatoon thing, which
Okay.
Very people like
Is that
their
a new
roguelikes.
game or is that a DLC?
DLC.
Cool.
Super Mario RPG
Nice.
is still Super Mario RPG. November 17th for that one. More
Man,
Pokemon.
could I have bought that in Japan 100 times over?
You bought it in Japan?
No, I could have.
Oh, okay, but you didn't.
So I went to a bunch of shops and they certainly had the original version of this like everywhere.
Yep.
Kept seeing it. It was tempting.
Pikachu can ride Pokemon in Detective Pikachu Returns. And he also likes
exciting.
coffee still. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I think got announced in the previous Direct. That's coming summer next year. Detective Pikachu is coming October 6th, so that's soon.
Okay.
Oh
yeah, that's like this week. I think that's the same day as Assassin's Creed.
Totally. There's more Mario Kart courses, the last batch of Mario Kart courses. This was the cool one. F-099 is an F-Zero, but it was a Battle Royale thing. It's another one of those things that's on Switch Online.
Interesting.
Cool. WarioWare Move It has a lot of micro games. 200 micro games. November 3rd.
200 amazing. I'm so keen for that.
Yeah.
Those games are so good.
There's also a little thing about a Nintendo Museum that's opening, and I made a joke on the stream that you were there too early. Because
I certainly was.
It's not open yet.
Must go back.
You must go back.
Amazing.
And then Amiibos and Prince of Persia and Tomb Raider Trilogy. The original Tomb Raider is getting remastered.
Wow.
This one's kind of cool. So they're coming out in February.
Is that a remaster?
It
that
is.
looks like a remaster.
It's a remaster, not a remake, Josh. These are different things.
Yeah. Graphics still look...
Yeah.
Like the OG.
And then there's a couple of League of
there it
Legends
is.
tie-in games. And then Dave the Diver is coming to console on Switch, which we kind of did know, but October 26th is the release date for that on Switch.
Nice. That's a great Switch game.
Totally. Game called Unicorn Overlord. It's coming out March 8th. I can't really remember what it was. RPG of some sort. And then Eastwood's getting some DLC. Did you play Eastwood? I vaguely remember you.
Oh, I wanted to play Eastwood, but I never got to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked good. I remember Gus talking about it on the pod and having some good things to say about it, as well as some other podcasters that I listen to.
And that's kind of it. Trombone Champ's coming to Switch. It came to Switch like day and date.
Nice.
And then Among Us is getting a new map. There you go. That was Nintendo. What do you think, Josh? Good?
There's some fun stuff in there.
Yeah.
There's some solid additions to the platforms.
It feels
cool. I like it.
It feels like a nice way to round out the Switch. Like genuinely, it felt like I'm feeling like, wow, you've got a surprising amount of content at the end of this console's life cycle, rather than like it really petering out. It's like, oh no, you're just making sure stuff gets out. Like you're still releasing stuff. It's not the bangers, but it's like still good stuff.
It's stuff that there are definitely like a huge audience for.
Totally.
And there's so much Mario, which is just perfect for it's almost like a reinvigoration of Mario.
Absolutely.
Since the movie, like, is just,
and different kinds of Mario.
So much of him.
We're getting Mario RPG, we're getting Paper Mario, which I guess is also an RPG. So, and then Mario and Donkey Kong, which that was a weird one. I genuinely thought that was a new game. I've never heard of that game before. But
Anyway, and then you got Peach. You've got Mario Wonder coming out soon.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I'm so excited for Mario Wonder. But yeah, we've still got news to talk about, Josh.
We do.
We're going to go on a sliding scale of like happy to sad news because Nintendo Direct is quite fun. Second one, I'd say it's middle news. I don't really care, but Jim Ryan is retiring from PlayStation next year. Pretty big deal.
Huge.
30 years with the company. So it's pretty crazy. Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew about one guy retiring, but everyone hates him and he lives in Melbourne.
The Premier.
Weird.
The Premier, Josh.
Yeah, the Premier.
Yeah, no, the Premier is retiring. I liked our Premier enough.
I thought he handled lockdown as well as someone could.
Totally.
And then people really started hating him towards the end and for the last couple of years. So
I don't like any politicians, but he's the best Premier of all of the ones we've had, so I'll at least give him that.
He's the best Premier I've ever had in Victoria.
Yep. which is even less time than me. We're not a politics podcast. We're a game podcast.
Correct.
And games have been great this year, but the games industry has sucked this year. And there's been two pretty major things. One that was really definitely breaking while you're away, and then one that is a lot more recent.
Sure.
So the one that was breaking while you're away was a big debacle over at Unity. So basically what happened is Unity announced a runtime fee, which would basically... How Unity currently works is they take a cut of sales from games once they reach a certain amount of revenue.
Income. Yeah. So like you earn like 100,000 and then they start taking a percentage.
Totally. And what Unity was like, well, they were like, I think on top of that, we're also going to start this fee that is basically we'll start charging developers each time a game using the Unity engine is downloaded. Each time it is downloaded, which in the era of Game Pass and many different and digital games and all these kinds of things was obviously not great. The exact numbers were the charge will begin when sales reach a threshold of 200,000 in revenue over 12 months and 200,000 total installs. Charges will vary depending on the license the developer has with Unity, but will be as high as 20 cents per install. And there was a lot of people being like, this sucks for everyone, but especially for devs that go on Game Pass in particular, and also devs that make free-to-play games that get downloaded a bunch, but obviously may not be bringing a ton of revenue. Some of them do, but some of them also don't. And it's like they're going to start getting charged for installs. And it's like a bunch of developers basically came out and were like, the amount of money we have made from this game, if we were charged based on downloads, we would be in debt. Yeah. Like, people did the maths and they were like, this just doesn't work. The maths doesn't math. And a bunch of developers started coming out and saying, we're moving our games to another engine. We're working on a new game and we're moving it to another engine. The developers of Slay the Spire said that. People were like, switch to Unreal, switch to Godot, which is like a more open source one.
Yes.
And so, yeah, basically everyone very upset about this. Unity kind of tried to like make it better by being like, oh, it'll only be the initial download, all those kind of things over the next little period of time. And then finally, about a couple weeks, it was like a week ago.
I feel like it was like maybe about a week ago they backtracked, right?
They properly fully backtracked on it. I can't remember the exact details of it. I haven't been able to find them specifically. But it basically, they were like, yeah, this runtime fee isn't it. Yeah, so what I'm reading now is that the games that make less than 1 million, it won't be applied for. And they're also, Unity was saying they were also going to apply it retroactively before January 1st to like older downloads and like have to pay a fee based on that. And then now they're like, it's only going to be for games on our new version of our engine, downloads from that point. So, and they've completely removed it from the free Unity plan. So not the paid one, but they've completely removed it. So they basically did a big old rollback on it. But I think for a lot of people, the sentiment is kind of that the damage is done and the trust has been broken. And there's a lot of people now considering Unreal, or we'll get to the next article in a bit, not really Unreal because of other things that are going on.
Interesting.
And maybe Godot. And being like, we're going to start working on these other engines because Unity may have run this back, but they only ran it back because everyone made a stink. And like the CEO, I think, of Unity, he's at some other company doing like terrible money things, and was kind of like... so people aren't trusting that Unity aren't going to keep trying to nickel and dime them. So yeah, that was the big news for a couple of weeks there.
Yes, I kind of saw this happen, but purely via YouTube video notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
While I was in Japan. So like I'd wake up and there'd just be 6 new videos from different game dev YouTubers that I watched that's just like, Unity's new plan, awful, blah, 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 all this crap. So I watched it sort of happen, peter out, and then backtrack because all the all those YouTubers again started making videos about the backtrack and discussing that. Even Brackies has come out again.
Yeah, wow. Brackies came
retired.
out from the rafters. That's crazy.
Yeah. So there was a post on Bracky's Twitter essentially saying, like, kind of saying, you know, the damage has been done. And
totally, because Bracky's, for those who don't know,
back.
is kind of the guy that everyone learns Unity from. It's like his tutorials on YouTube. Like, that's how I learned Unity. It's how basically anyone I know learned Unity is through his tutorials.
Totally.
So.
And then he basically retired, finished up the channel and the company. The company to some extent.
Yeah.
I think during 2020. And then, so he's come back out and said that. And apparently people are asking him to start doing tutorials on a different engine. And he said that he's recently started learning Godot. Yeah. So we could get a whole new series of Bracky videos about Godot soon.
No, totally. And I've talking to my friend Matt and even myself, I'm like, definitely want to get back to dabbling in game engines at some point. And I was thinking about using Unreal, but the more and more I hear about Godot and stuff, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do that. I remember, I think the developers of Godot also came out during this and were like, hey, ours is free. Just a heads up.
And is it like no charge for Godot either?
I don't know the exact details. I'll have a look at it real quick. Sure. But the other big thing that I was just looking at was that Massive Monster, the developers of Cult of the Lamb, when this all came out, said that before Unity obviously like pulled it back and everything, were like, we will be delisting Cult of the Lamb. It will no longer be able to be purchased on January 1st. Because it was made in Unity and we can't like afford this. So it was like, and Cult of the Lamb, one of the biggest games of last year. So like,
huge.
Godot is a free all-in-one cross-platform game engine. So there you go. I assume there's probably some bits and pieces about it, but it does seem pretty much open source, which is awesome. Nice. And then the other piece of real shitty news, which kind of happened in the past week, was that Epic Games, famously the developer of Fortnite, who make a lot of money, decided that they would cut 870 jobs, around 16% of their workforce.
16?
Yep. And they are also selling Bandcamp, which they acquired just last year.
They own Bandcamp?
Yeah, they bought it well, they won't anymore. They're selling it again.
Yeah. Random.
But so Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, came out with a memo and was talking about how they'd been trying to build out the metaverse with Fortnite and been trying to make stuff more accessible and blah, 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 blah. Mincing his words a bunch, really. It was like, we tried to cut the costs on all this and we hoped we could push through it, but we're spending more money than we earn. And he said that we're concluding that layoffs are the only way. So it's not true. Basically, people have very much looked at this, read through all the bullshit, and been like, this is... While there might be some element of fact to some of what he says, the idea that that layoffs were the only way that this could happen, that Epic isn't successful, all these kind of different things are just false. Like, Epic is by far and away one of the highest earning game companies that exists.
It's got to be one of the highest earning like software companies.
Totally.
Of all time. Like,
Tim Sweeney.
So many games made in it, plus they make their own games that are highly successful, ridiculously successful.
Tim Sweeney is has a net worth of $4 billion. So the idea that they need to cut jobs is pretty rich coming from him. When I'm pretty sure all those jobs could be saved with the amount of money he earns.
Absolutely.
Like, genuinely.
Probably half of the money he earns.
Yeah. So that's broken in the last week, and people are pretty noticeably upset about it. And the worst part about it is his argument was that like they've been like acquiring these places and like they need to kind of cut back on all this spending. But how that actually came to the fore was that it seemed that the majority of staff at Mediatonic and Psyonix, who make Fall Guys and Rocket League respectively, both games that Epic bought in recent years, have been laid off. So they basically gutted both of these studios, who got successful not because of Epic. Then Epic bought them and has now gutted them. So the Fall Guys devs and the Rocket League devs are kind of reeling from all this, basically through no fault of their own, because Epic bought them and then decided that they didn't need them. And the other thing I'll mention on this is it kind of, from my perspective, whenever I see a lot of these layoffs happen, I often see them happen in communications and marketing, which is obviously a field I'm kind of in with the job I do. And I feel like, I'm not saying it didn't happen to other developers. There's been developers across all the fields that have been laid off, but I almost always see a significant amount of communications and marketing and QA. And it feels like those are the ones that people go to because they default to, these aren't necessary. These are like surplus to requirements. They don't make the actual game. Which I just think is, no one should be laid off to start off with, but the fact that they start prioritizing based on those kind of things makes me really upset. And I think that, Epic just, if it is true and they're not making money, like, there are so many different ways to cut back on this spending, especially when they're launching this whole crusade against Apple as well through the courts, which they've called Project Liberty. And they said that they're still proceeding with it, but are trying to cut costs, but they're still going to the Supreme Court of the United States to fight this monopoly that Apple has. And it's this whole thing that Epic's been going on and on about like fighting monopolies and like being the right option for developers because we offer a better cut and stuff. And if the reality is that offering that cut wasn't sustainable, basically what's happened here is Tim Sweeney has been in charge of the company and made some terrible financial decisions, if it is true that they are losing money. And instead of him taking responsibility for it, he's been like, well, we need to lay off a bunch of people.
Yeah.
It sucks.
So bad.
It sucks. But pretty significant thing that's happened in the games industry. So I thought we'd better talk about it on our games podcast.
Absolutely. Gross.
Yeah. And it's definitely, look, like I had uninstalled Fortnite. I have barely used the Epic Game Store in a while. And I'm not personally a boycott person because I so-and-so about their effectiveness a lot of the time. But it is definitely the kind of thing where, particularly in the past couple of weeks, it's made me, past week, because I haven't went last week, it's made me think about, Ahsoka came out in Fortnite, and this news came out around the same time, and I was like, well, I'm not going to re-download this. I just don't want to do that. And I now am looking at Epic Game Store and I'm like, oh, well, I was buying stuff here because the devs gave a better cut. But if it's supporting a company like Epic who's going to do this kind of stuff, let's go back to buying stuff on Steam and, all these different bits and pieces.
Yeah, totally. Just like ways that the devs will make more money.
Totally. And as the thing I mentioned earlier,
Epic will make less.
Where I've been toying up, experimenting with Unreal for ages, and now I'm like, well, probably won't do that. I feel like this is maybe the first instance of Epic cutting back in certain areas, but it just sucks that it affected so many people who did not deserve it. So yeah, that's the sad news out of the way. That sucks. That's Josh's catch up. No, catch up's a different podcast. That's Josh's super fun rapid fire news Josh missed.
That's right.
Which was great.
Thank you, Ben.
Do you feel caught up?
Thank you for catching me up. I do.
Okay,
I didn't know the stuff about. I didn't know what had come out of Nintendo. Didn't know about Jim Ryan.
Yeah.
Didn't know about Epic.
Yeah. Cool.
So sufficiently caught up.
Very good. Very good. I'm sorry not all of it was positive, but at least there's some fun Nintendo games in there.
That's true.
To wrap it all out, just a funky little one to wrap it up. Dave the Diver Studios' next game is a PvPvE zombie stealth survival adventure.
PvPvE?
PvPvE.
What is that? Player versus environment. Does that just mean
Yeah.
What is that? That's like
that
an
means
MMO,
that
right?
that means that there's players versus. Yeah. It's what is it? It's
kind of like every man for themselves.
It's Division. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, how do you follow? This is from Matt Wales at Eurogamer. He says, how do you follow up a 5-star treat like Dave the Diver with a zombie-themed 16-player PvPvE stealth survival extraction game, of course? Developer Mint Rocket has just unveiled its next project titled Nakwon Last Paradise. So yeah.
So weird.
I just thought that was funny.
It is.
There's a teaser trailer for it. We can watch the teaser trailer for this. Oh, this is the wrong. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a pixel art game.
No, it's not pixel art.
Wow.
It's not nothing to do with fishing.
Yeah, this is full on, like, high quality graphics, 3D.
Yep.
What the heck?
Yep.
How do you go from Dave the Diver to this?
Don't know, Josh. I don't know.
That's insane.
But let me tell you, Dave Diver's way cooler than this.
Yep, it's definitely more striking.
This looks boring as heck, and it's very funny because the extraction game genre is one that is very much a buzzword at the moment. It feels like everyone's trying to capitalize on. Bungie's new game, Marathon, is extraction game. I'm pretty sure multiple other games have been announced are extraction games. Escape from Tarkov, obviously one of like the initial ones of that. But yeah, it's very funny to me. That's all I have to say about that. Yeah.
What a weird way to go.
Yeah. Make more Dave the Divers. Dave the Diver, I haven't finished it, I haven't played it in a while, but a lot of heart in that game, whereas...
Yeah. If anything, I think I'd jump on that on Switch when it comes to Switch.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely keen for that.
Alrighty. Well, that's the bulletin board. Bit of a beefy bulletin board. Beefy bulletin board. That was good alliteration.
Nice.
Yeah. Because we had to catch Josh up on all the news he missed. But Josh, as we talked about, some games have come out. I might have played some of these games. You haven't really. But where would we talk about those games?
I was trying to find a book. I was trying to see if I had a book to open, as if I was trying to check my quest log. Yeah, Ben's gone.
Wow, look at all those quests.
Look at all those quests in the log.
Amazing.
Should I start us off?
Yeah, let's just jump through yours, because you mentioned you haven't really had a chance to play much. So
not a whole bunch.
Yeah.
But I did mention in a previous podcast that I wanted to jump into Metroid Prime Remaster while I was away, especially on the plane.
Yeah.
Sadly, I didn't get to do that much. I did play maybe like 4 hours in total, maybe a bit more. But basically, all of my flights, I had some layover flights. So I had 4 flights in total. But both of the starts of my flights were around midnight, which means you get on the plane and you want to sleep.
Yeah.
Planes notoriously difficult to sleep on. I'd never experienced that before because I've never had a flight longer than about 2.5 hours. So yeah, it was. I basically couldn't sleep through the night.
Yeah.
And then when it got to the day, when I would be like, yes, I'm just going to play games until we get to Japan, I was so tired that I just wanted to sleep and didn't want to do anything else, but continued to not be able to sleep very well.
Yeah. It's this awful thing with flights where as someone who's done one of the longest flights you could do, which is cross to America multiple times, I find... compared to shorter flights, it's so much easier to pull out a little thing and be like, I'm going to play a game. And you think, oh, well, I've got a 14-hour flight. That's so much time to play games. And then the reality is, as you just said, you just, like, are either in a state of sleeping or, like, state of attempting to sleep or wanting to be asleep, but not.
Yes.
And it is... yeah, it's not that great for gameplay, to be honest. But
totally. My thought process now, which I won't get to test for a long time, if ever, depending on my next international flight, is like a red-eye flight where I get a good night's sleep at home in bed the night before.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and then I've got a day worth of playing games.
Yeah, honestly, probably a much better idea. Better idea.
Yeah, I've now learned this.
Yeah.
So starting your flight at night, terrible idea because you won't be able to sleep.
Yeah.
But I did play some Metroid Prime Remaster. Love it. It's great. What I've played so far. I don't really understand the story I don't know if there kind of is one at this stage. There haven't been too many cutscenes or anything like that, except for the intro, which seems like it was just there was a distress call from a planet, and you've landed on the planet, and now you're just going around the planet. I think something happened where I lost all my abilities. You have a lot of the abilities first up, as you have with a lot of games, where you can roll up in a ball and all that sort of thing, and then something happens, you got to get them all back. And yeah, it's just. Have you ever played Metroid Prime?
No, I have not played any of them. The only Metroid I've played is Dread.
Dread? Cool. Me too. That's exactly where I was. And I'm getting, I totally get what makes Metroid.
Yeah.
It's just, you can wander around a map until you find the next ability that allows you to access a whole bunch of other things.
There's a reason the genre is named after the game.
Correct. It's great. So, I've been absolutely loving it. The abilities are cool. They're just Metroid Dread abilities, but in 3D.
Yeah.
The worlds are cool. The enemies are pretty cool. The boss fights are interesting. They're hard as well. The boss fights, you get to a point where you understand them, but it takes a little while for you to get what's happening. As you keep trying again. But yeah, so good, so much fun.
I'll get to it one day.
Sorry?
I'll get to it one day.
Yeah.
There's too many games right now this year that I'm maybe next year.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I'm feeling like that with Star Wars and probably Starfield.
Yeah.
Anything relating to stars except Sea of Stars. I want to play that this year. And the other thing that I played this week for a couple of days was Riders Republic, the skateboard DLC. So that just came out last week.
Yes.
The day I got back from Japan. I think I jumped into it maybe 2 days after it came out. And the day after it came out, I had nearly 100%ed it. Hey, where'd you get that, Ben? Where'd you get that tech deck? You never have a tech deck handy on your...
There we go. For those who are curious, if you're listening on audio as well, just put a tech deck on my microphone, and I got it because Josh gave everyone at his wedding a tech deck, and it's very cool.
I sure did.
I fiddle around with stuff a lot, so it's been my thing. I've been fiddling around with on my desk, even though I can't do any tricks with it. But yeah.
It's good fun. They're great. That's why I've got a bunch on my desk. I can't do much with them either.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn and get better with them, but I'm still trash. But yes, the Riders Republic Skateboard DLC. It's great. It's got a very loose storyline like Riders Republic does. Just for the skate thing, it's just you trying to make your way to the X Games, I think, for skateboarding, to qualify for stuff. But there's a bunch of extra challenges for every level. There's 15 kind of base levels, main competitions to enter.
Yeah.
Each one has 3 extra challenges, often popping 5 balloons, either a skateboard wheel or the word skate, or the word Vans, I think, on some levels. So there's that. There's always a camera that slows down time, so you sort of go off a ramp, do a cool trick, and hit the camera so that it slows down and it takes a photo of you. I guess in inverted commas for audio listeners, takes a photo while you're doing a cool trick. Every time I hit that, I always do pretty much nothing. Not because I'm not trying, but usually because I'm I'm going to do something sick, and then I miss every button input as I'm heading towards it, so nothing happens at all. And then also usually a trick challenge, do a 900, which is a famous skateboarding trick that Tony Hawk did. Or, do this very specific combo in this order, which is often also a hard challenge. So it's do a kickflip into a manual, into a 180 turn, into blah, blah, blah.
900. That's 360 times 2.5. That's
so it's 2.5 turns.
Wow.
In the air. Yeah.
Crazy.
It's huge. So it was almost at some stage thought impossible until 1991 when Tony Hawk did the first one.
Tony, we love him.
And then that's right. And then since then, people have done more. People have done 1080s and stuff, but they've just had bigger ramps.
That's 3 spins.
And that's right. Yeah. And I think there has been 3.5 spins too. It's ridiculous.
1260.
Something like that. It's dumb. It's too much. It's too much.
Wow.
But yeah.
I am glad you are enjoying it.
Definitely. Definitely.
Cannot engage with this in any way.
That's fair. But for people, I know there was a few people on our Discord talking about it. And they were like, man, this is really expensive. I don't think I'm going to get this. But they were looking at pretty much if you go to like the store to buy the PlayStation pack, like in the main menu, it takes you to like Skateboard DLC Plus or something.
Yeah, okay.
And it's this big pack that gives you that. It gives you like a season pass. It gives you hoverboards. You don't need any of that.
Okay.
You can get it for much, much cheaper. That one was like $50 or $60 or something. Like, it was so expensive. If you're playing the game, you you open a menu that shows you all the different sports, all the different you can change into a snowboard or a bike or a jetpack, all that sort of thing. There is a skateboard there, even if you haven't bought it. And if you select that, it'll come up and say, you don't own this. Do you want to buy it? It costs this many in-game currency, or like premium currency. And then you can buy that. And that's much cheaper than buying the huge pack.
This is a Ubisoft game, correct?
Correct.
I need not say any more.
There you go. But there is a cheap way to do it.
Yeah, that's good to know.
It's tricky to find.
Yeah. One final question on this. Would you say there are big skateboards in this game?
There are big skateboard wheels. Those are the giant wheel balloons that you collect. So I guess if big skateboard wheels exist, then big skateboards also have to exist. So I've got to say yes. I've got to say yes. There are big skateboard.
Amazing.
There you go.
Wow, I love skateboarding.
Hell yeah.
I am all about the skateboarding. And I've also not been to Japan over the past month and a half, so I had to find some time to fill playing games. Nice. And as we established, lots of games came out. To roll off the top of my head, Sea of Stars, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty.
Has that come out?
Yep. Starfield.
Wow.
Lies of P. Cocoon just came out the other day, which I'm very keen to.
Cocoon. Nice.
Probably missed some other stuff. A lot of games. I started 4 games at once.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started... Oh, actually, okay. Technically, I started 3 games at once, and then I had already been playing Starfield.
Sure.
So there's 2 games I'm going to talk about in this because they're the 2 that I've actually played a substantial amount of. We'll get to in a moment, which are Lies of P and Starfield. The other 2 games, I have started Sea of Stars. I played a very short amount of it just at the start. I'm very excited to play it, but just didn't get back to it. And then also, very similarly, made a character in Cyberpunk. Never played the original game, so like starting from the start, made a character and finished character creator, and then quit the game. Was like, I'll get back to this later. Because it was the thing where I was basically like, I'm going to start all these games, and I know I'm only going to stick with a few of them, but I just want to see which one I decide to stick with. And I had them, but I'm very keen to get back to both of them. I've got all the graphics juiced up on Cyberpunk. I've got my brand new graphics card from this year, and I know it's going to look amazing. Very keen to get stuck into that at some point.
Also played some Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
For people playing at home.
Yeah.
I've played more than Ben by the sounds of it from our previous discussions.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it. I've gotten past the full prelude
Yeah.
sort of introduction section, which
Yep.
is quite long. It's like hours long.
Yeah.
So yes, keen for you to jump back in. I'm
Yep.
keen to jump back in.
Totally. Well, so I think how I'm going to start this, I'm going to talk about Lies of P the most. So I'm going to start off talking about Lies of P. So that was the game I started at the same time, came at a very similar time to Sea of Stars and Cyberpunk, all kind of around the same point. We discussed on the last podcast, this is kind of a Souls-like game set in the Pinocchio story world.
Pinocchio-verse.
Pinocchio-verse. And I think listening back to that last podcast when I was editing it, we both talked about, I don't know how much we'll play of it. It's on Game Pass, so we'll give it a go, but neither of us are super Souls people. I mentioned I've finished Sekiro, and that's the only Souls game I finished. So I was like, look, I'll give it a go, but I won't know how stuck into it I'll get.
Yeah. You thought that you were just going to be checking it out for a few hours and then jumping out again.
Yeah. I've checked it out for more than a few hours, Josh. This is not my gameplay. This is just someone who's put the gameplay up on the internet. But I think this game is fantastic. I am surprised at how much I have played of this game and how much I've been enjoying it. One of the things that has helped is I've been playing it alongside a couple of friends of mine. They're also playing it at the same point in time. And so with these kind of games, there's often very like secrets and convoluted stuff that you kind of have to talk through, tips for how to do bosses. So that's kind of been a fun little back and forth of like, oh, you're up to this boss, I did this, and then I try that strategy and I'm like, oh, actually this worked better for me, that kind of thing. So that's been super fun. But Lies of P set in the Pinocchio, I don't want to say universe because it's really very loosely based around Pinocchio because it's a much more like, I would say grimdark version of it. It's very like messed up, much more like you think about a Dark Souls game and how they tend to be a bit creepy and stuff. This is that version of Pinocchio. All the puppets that you're fighting are super creepy looking, have red eyes. So
it's like a Pinocchio alt universe.
Totally. Pinocchio looks like Timothée Chalamet. It's I've been so into it. The reasons I've been into it, I think it has very similar mechanics to Sekiro, which is a game I like a lot because the big thing in Sekiro is parrying, which I much prefer as a gameplay style to the much more dodge-heavy ways you tend to play your Elden Rings and your Dark Souls. And so this game, you can approach it from a dodging perspective. You can also approach it from a parry perspective, but the parry mechanic is very strong and very easy to understand, but difficult to master. And that's what immediately drew me in. And that has been what has like carried me through the combat in a way that I wasn't able to stick with Elden Ring because I tried parrying and it's absurdly hard in that game and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Whereas I'm able to do it in this game, but it also feels fun, feels rewarding. You get like good feedback when you parry, and then the coolest thing is some enemies, I'd say most enemies, but not all of them, have a weapon that you can break if you parry their attacks enough, and breaking their weapon makes their attacks a lot weaker and like less range because obviously their weapon is broken. And so that's like a super cool, like you're actually affecting the fight you're in because of pulling off the parries and stuff. It's not just a like method of not getting hit, which I really liked. And the other reason I kind of enjoy it is it's definitely a bit more fast-paced than your average Souls game, your average Elden Ring game. It's more akin to a Bloodborne, I would say. You're more rewarded for playing offensively, not in tight. You don't want to just like go and whack people, but you're rewarded for not just like sitting back and waiting on stuff. There's a few cool like ways they've done this, some of which are from other Souls games, some of which are new to this game. And so one of them is the fact that when you run out of healing potions, you are able to recharge one of those healing potions by attacking an enemy. So normally in a Souls game, you run out of healing potions, you're like, I've just got to deal with how much health I've got. But the beauty of this is you're kind of able to be like, all right, well, it's going to be a struggle, but if I like manage to do enough damage and survive through it, I can get a healing potion back. And so you can kind of sustain through a fight through that, which is super cool. And then the other reason I would say that I've really been drawn into this game is just the general setting of it. It's not your like depressing fantasy that From Software are very much known for. Even with Bloodborne was still just not the nicest to look at. And as I mentioned earlier, this game has its like creepy vibes, but the actual world you are in is very gorgeous. It's like a kind of like 1920s European kind of vibe, a lot of Art Deco, that kind of thing. And like just like this kind of steampunky weapons you get, the art design of everything I'm finding like really interesting, and also knowing enough about the Pinocchio story kind of like stringing me along because I'm wanting to see what differences there is in this game versus like the classic Pinocchio story. And there's like cool moments where you have to like choose to lie or tell the truth, and that affects how much of a human or how much of a puppet you are, because puppets can't lie.
Cool.
Nice. And there's a few
Does Pinocchio have a robot arm?
Yeah, he does. So that's one of the
Cool.
That's like a power up thing you have. One of your arms has, you can change it out. So the one that you'll see at the moment that he's using is like a rope dart. But I was using one that plants a landmine in the ground for a while. There's like just like a flamethrower arm. There's like shock arms. Geppetto's in it. They're meeting Geppetto on the screen right now.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just very fun. I don't know how much more I have to say about it, but just surprised at how much I am into this game, how much I am back into a Souls game, and it's kind of making me want to go and play other Souls games, which sucks because I don't have time to do that. I'm just having enough of a good time with it that I think it's I'm really being pulled through it, and like I want to go and play more now. We
had a meeting last night, and it sounded like you were playing whilst we were having the meeting.
Totally, I was. I'm not even going to deny it. And I'd say I'm about 2/3 through, but what I've heard is that the bosses towards the end of the game are quite rough. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to be at it. I think I put in about 22 hours already. So I reckon it'll be about a 30-35 hour kind of game. But I've had multiple nights where I've been up till like 1 a.m. Just trying to beat a boss. And it's very satisfying when you finally do it. That's the beauty of these games. It's like it's so brutal, and then you finally achieve it, and you're like, I'm just the best gamer ever to have lived. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
And briefly experienced when I tried to play Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
Beat a few bosses in that, and it feels great.
Totally. It requires a lot of persistence. I will say this is probably one of the more approachable, because Dark Souls From Software has a tendency to make certain things very convoluted. And I'm not going to say this game doesn't have weird convoluted mechanics that you have to have explained to you, but it probably has less of them and is easier to wrap your head around in general. I just think it's definitely made to be somewhat more accessible to your average non-Souls gamer, as opposed to the people who play all of these games, who a lot of them are still really enjoying this game. And there's also these summons you can bring up during boss fights that make the boss fights a lot easier. So I haven't been using them, but those are things that you can do if you just want to get through and experience like the story. Which also, the story is interesting me in a way that Souls games often don't, because a lot of the Souls lore comes from like little notes and like scraps around the world, and not like directly told to you. This game is better at directly telling you a story as well as giving you like that environmental stuff. So
cool.
That's Lies of P. And then the other one I'm going to talk about is Starfield, which I think I've also put about 20 hours into, maybe a bit more than that. And I have made it a decent way through the main quest. But I think I'm done with the game for now, Josh. Starfield is a weird game. I'm very interested to when you finally get to play it. Because it's not a bad game. I I think it really works for some people. Like Pete, who I work with, adores this game. Has played it so much.
It looks like a Pete game.
Yeah, and it definitely has a lot of the hallmarks of classic Bethesda games. But it also does away with other elements of classic Bethesda games that make me like this less. And there's just some generally interesting decisions that I'm not going to say are like bad decisions, but are definitely like polarizing ones when you play this game. One of the big things, obviously, is like you are exploring the stars, you're exploring multiple planets. But the exploration in this game is awful. Mm-hmm. Like, most of going to a solar system, going to a planet, there is a loading screen in between each of them. You cannot fly onto a planet. You just... I
heard about this, yeah.
You just appear in an area on the planet, which you've, like, clicked on to, like, land here. And you land there. Mm-hmm. And then you have a set area. It's often a pretty linear area that you can kind of go through, and there'll be your classic quests and stuff through that area. And there is no area map for any of these places, which is also very frustrating because you kind of have to like track yourself through it. That's one of the bad decisions, which I think most people agree on. But yeah, so you kind of land in these places, get a bunch of quests, land in these little hubs. Then you fly up through a loading screen into the sky. And then you go through another loading screen to go to another solar system. And then you jump to another city. And it's a lot of that. Which
yeah, I have heard about this.
Is jarring, but is not like the worst thing. Like I didn't ultimately I was like, all right. It felt like they promised us exploration in like marketing this game to us, but that's not what this game is. Clearly, I'm learning as I play it that it's not all about like just exploring and like learning what is in the stars. It's more of a classic Bethesda game in that you've got your set faction missions, you've got your side quests in each of these areas, and they are generally pretty well written. And I will say that most of the side quests I've done, I've enjoyed quite a lot. I've done the full Vanguard quest line, which is one of the factions, and that is fantastic. But that is also the reason I stopped playing this game, is because from everything I've heard, that is one of the best things this game has to offer. And I then got to a point in the main story, which is not awful, but also not good, where there was about to be a lot of busy work. And I was like, you know what? I've experienced the thing that everyone says is good. And I'm now about to go and do the thing that some people like, but other people have said is very monotonous and repetitive. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, I hit a point, I just downloaded all these other games because Starfield came out a little bit before these other games. And I was like, you know what? I think I will probably come back to it one day and I'll probably go back and finish the main story. But it's just, for me, it's a very 7 out of 10 experience where I'm like, I don't hate it. There's bits of it I quite enjoy. The shooting is surprisingly fun. And the classic like Bethesda like lock picking activity is the best one they've ever made. Like all the little like RPG things are often quite fun. But then it's just like, I just don't think the rest of it is a particularly like fun game. The stuff that you would find in other Bethesda games is like as good as it is in other Bethesda games. So if you liked them, you'll like this. But then it's like they've cut out exploring the wilderness in Skyrim because you don't really get to explore a wilderness. Or if you do, it's procedurally generated and not that interesting. And then
I heard like one of the cool things about a lot of the other Bethesda games, like your Elder Scrolls and Fallouts and stuff, is that there's so much like, what's that in the distance? I want to go check that out.
Yeah.
And apparently that's pretty lost in this because what's that in the distance is another planet and you can't really see anything there that's of interest to go and explore,
and it's
other
like
than the fact that it's a planet.
When you're on a planet, you do slightly have those moments, but they're nowhere near as interesting because they're often randomly generated things, or if they're not randomly generated things, they are for a specific quest.
Yes.
So, but
it's a shame.
And it's this other thing. You're totally right there because I think the benefit of a game like Skyrim or Fallout is like you are set to that map. That is where the wonder comes from in that game. Whereas because of the nature of what this game is, you're going into space, you're flying a ship into space, you're going to be seeing stars and planets, and that gives you a sense of wonder. And it definitely gives me a sense of wonder when I'm in my ship, like in orbit and I'm looking at this planet and I'm looking at like this cool planet with rings around it. I'm like, this looks sick. That's awesome. And then I'm like, oh, but to actually explore it, I have to do this, this, and this, and this. And it's not like there's those barriers in between when I'm experiencing that wonder and then actually like going to check that thing out. And like when I do actually go to check that thing out, the other thing I know at this point is that it's going to be a very certain type of experience that is not really what I'd want, and just makes me kind of want to go play No Man's Sky to get that kind of experience. And I'm now, I'd come to peace with the fact that this game is not the kind of promise that No Man's Sky is, in that freedom of exploration, and is a very it's much more focused on the stories it is trying to tell within its world. But it's still weirdly inconsistent with the idea of what they promised this game would be, and the idea of a space-based RPG. And especially given the fact that they made such a point out of all these planets to explore. It's like, if it's a Mass Effect scenario where you're very clearly going to certain planets to do it and it's a very linear experience, I think this game would be much better off. I think the fact that it actually suggests to you that there's all this extra space that you can explore, and then that stuff isn't that interesting, isn't worth exploring, it's just a bit disappointing. The other thing I'll say, I would not have made it through nearly as much of this game if I had not installed very particular mods. That actually made the exploration better, because one of the things that is terrible is the inventory management, and the fact that a lot of the mechanics in this game are built around crafting, building settlements, that kind of thing. But the problem is, you have to collect a bunch of resources to do all that, and those resources all have a certain weight, and encumberment in this game is just absurdly oppressive, because not only is it tied to like you move slower, in this game it's tied to the amount of oxygen you have and how your oxygen recharges, and your oxygen normally recharges at a decent rate and when you stop sprinting, but when you are encumbered, your oxygen recharges slower, and the CO2 you have acquired doesn't remove itself or something until you like fully I can't remember exactly. It's been a little bit since I played this now, so I can't remember exactly what. My point is, it like actually affects the systems in an even worse way than it would in other Bethesda games where encumbrance is already annoying. So I had to like go into files and sort out a mod that basically meant that all those resources didn't have a weight to it. And that made my experience a lot better. But that happens when you explore. So the exploration without that, which a lot of people play this on consoles and stuff, or without installing mods, the exploration without that is so limited, because you always have to go back to your ship to drop off this stuff. And even without that, I was like, I still feel like I need to go back to my ship to like recharge and that kind of stuff. But but with that, I don't know. It's a weird game. I don't think it's bad. I think some people will really, really love it, and I don't even begrudge those people for really, really loving it. I just think it's definitely the most polarizing game Bethesda have made in a while.
That's fair.
And also, the one major criticism I will give it, and I'm willing to give it, is that it does not develop enough upon the learnings of 10 to 15 years of RPGs since like the old Bethesda RPGs came out. It does not develop upon the learnings of The Witcher and Cyberpunk and stuff. It is very much still got holdovers from classic Bethesda, like from Skyrim and Fallout, which Skyrim in particular, at the time it came out, fantastic game, was really moving the genre forward. But my biggest problem with this game is it feels like, aside from the scope of it, which I don't actually think benefits the game that much, it's really like stuck in Skyrim worked, so we're gonna put a bunch of that formula into this game, but like change it up a little bit. They're not innovating in a way that Morrowind to Oblivion was an innovation, Oblivion to Fallout to Skyrim was. It's like, no, this is not Fallout 5. Fallout 4 came out in 2015. This is not 8 years of single-player RPG development. Maybe, I mean, it is because of the scope of the world, but the focus is entirely on the wrong place in me. That's not like helping anything.
Totally.
And especially with Cyberpunk coming out like a week later, and doing a massive revamp of all its systems and being much more about like innovating in the space. It definitely
and then also
interestingly timed.
Yeah, before that, Baldur's Gate 3 being
yes, absolutely,
by the sounds of it, an infinitely better RPG.
Yeah, that's the other that I did keep mentioning to people when I was playing this game. I was like, in Baldur's Gate I can do this, and in this game I can't do that. And I know they're different kinds of games, but they're also still both RPGs. And it's not that I need Starfield or want Starfield to be as free as Baldur's Gate, because I don't think it's possible as a first person game, nor do I think it would necessarily benefit what Bethesda is trying to do. But it does need to do better than it is doing.
Yes. Like, I feel like, I guess what I meant by that was, like, Baldur's Gate seemed to push RPGs forward and do something truly amazing and changing the game in a way. And it sounds like this is not.
Totally. You're 100% right. People are looking at Baldur's Gate and being like, man, how do we do that? Whereas I don't think a lot of people are looking at Starfield and being like, how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
They're looking at it and being like, oh, yeah, this is what we expected.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Starfield. I will probably go back to it at some point. It's on Game Pass again, which helps my like desire to go back to it. But I don't think I will touch it for a while. I didn't even mention the other weird thing about this game, which is the one place it innovates, but it also innovates in a way that kind of harms it, which is, I don't want to say too much because it spoils stuff, but the New Game Plus in this game changes a significant amount of the game. Like,
I heard about this. Yeah.
And I never got to that, for one. But the biggest problem with that is, as I was playing it and hearing all these people talk about New Game Plus, I was like, well, that ruins my investment in this playthrough. Because because you don't keep ships, the only thing you keep are like your skills. You don't keep weapons, any of that stuff. You don't keep houses you buy. So I'm like, well, then why, if the whole thing is I'm supposed to play through a bunch of times on New Game Plus to get different stuff, then I don't invest in the playthrough like I would in another RPG. I don't invest in this version of the character. I just try and like min-max to get to the end to redo it all. And then apparently the point at which a lot of people are stopping is 10 New Game Plus playthroughs, which apparently the New Game Plus playthroughs are a lot quicker, but they're still not like, you're still having to do certain things like 10 times to then get to the point where you're like, this is the canon playthrough. And I'm like, I don't want to go through the busy work of this game 10 times. And to their credit, it's the one place in this game that they are innovating in a way that other games and RPGs aren't. But it's like, again, maybe the focus was not in the right place, at least for me, because I think it's it definitely it either lessens my investment in my current playthrough, or it makes me want to, or it makes me be like, all right, well, I'm just playing this playthrough, and then like, never again. I'm not making a new character or anything, because like, it will feel like I've lost a bunch of stuff. It's like I either have to make the decision just this once, or I make the decision to just like mainline through stuff and get it done. So
Yeah, I remember hearing, I think around the release date, I was still listening to Kind of Funny, and Greg Miller, I think at that stage, at the release date of this game, was up to his 5th playthrough.
Yeah.
Because obviously he'd got the codes early, not heaps early, but
he was one
like
of the
maybe
people
a week or two early
online that was kind of like discovering those New Game Plus things early, because he was one of the people who had access to it, so he was kind of like sharing, there's significant changes and stuff. But the thing that eventually kind of shook out, that it was like, the changes are somewhat random. What exactly ones you get in your playthrough are somewhat random. Here's what you get at this amount of playthroughs. Here's what you get at this amount of playthroughs. That kind of thing. And it's like, I think there's something there. There's definitely an interesting choice there. I almost think it's maybe not the kind of game where you want to be doing like a long RPG game is maybe not the kind of game where you want to be experimenting. I think you've seen success with games like Nier Automata and stuff where you're doing multiple playthroughs because they're shorter games. and you can like kind of allow that to work. But yeah, not sure it works in an RPG framework. But yeah, just it's an interesting. I'm glad it came out, and I'm glad the conversations are being had about like, and that other RPGs came out around it, so we can kind of be like, oh, what is this actually doing, and is this like as good as these other games? Does it need to be as good as all those things? So yeah.
Is this meant to be clouds or like dust?
Yeah,
Like,
some kind of vapor.
That looks bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. It looks like a graphical glitch.
There is some stuff that is like very gorgeous in this game, and then there's also some stuff that I'm like, yeah, that doesn't quite look that great.
Yeah, sorry for audio listeners, but yeah, it's just looking real funky.
Yeah, and I shouldn't talk about this game for too much longer because we do have the rest of the podcast to get to.
We do.
And this will be a very short gripe. They put this like green yellow filter over the entire game. And I was like, oh, it's just like, no, it's just like how the planets look, because like realistically a lot of planets wouldn't be that colorful. But no, eventually of playing it a while, I'm like, no, there is a green, yellow, gross, late 2000s kind of filter over this game that does not look nice. And eventually I modded it out. I modded it out, and I was like, this looks so much better. Why?
Interesting.
It leads to moments. Oh my god, this person's clipping through it. Monster, which is the Bethesda jank we love, but it leads to all these environments actually looking more similar than they actually are. Because as soon as I turned it off, I was like, wow, this place is really colorful. But it's like, because they had this weird filter over the game, it just all kind of congealed into this one like icky yellow green.
Yeah. It's so weird.
I learned that mods are great from this game.
Apparently. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on? Because this is just the quest log, and we're still yet to reach the main quest, which
totally,
I promise will not take up too much time.
Yeah, totally. Well, we kind of knew this in advance as well. They'll talk about some beefy games, and then Josh will do his main quest, which is maybe, well, it was your main quest for the past. It was a big quest in your life. It was the mainest quest of getting married and going to Japan.
That's it. It's probably the biggest quest that I've ever been on in my life.
Yeah. Sting. And stung. Josh.
All right.
Tell us about that main quest of going to Japan. Did you have a good time?
Very excited. I did. Had an amazing time.
Okay, very good.
A majority of my discussion of Japan will likely be on Edo's catch-up, whenever Will and I record that. And that'll be just the general, like, what I did, pop culture-y stuff. This is just for the video game-related stuff. So I'm holding a lot of the video game-related stuff away from catch-up.
Yeah.
And I'm holding a lot of the pop culture-y extra stuff that I did away from.
You got to listen to both podcasts.
There you go. So
I don't have to split them. Will doesn't have to split them because we've only got one. But poor Josh has to split up his life.
That's it. But I didn't want, because there are a lot of people that listen to both, and I didn't want a huge crossover of like having to re-listen to the whole thing or skip through and find the parts that I haven't talked about. So they're split. I've sent Ben a whole bunch of photos. Basically, just of various cool video game related things that I got to experience. These are some of the arcades. There's a bunch of arcades. A lot of them kind of look like this. Very, very cool. Just a lot of machines. There's a lot of claw machines. They love claw machines. They do
love their claw machines. They love their neon.
They also particularly love in this shot gacha machines.
Oh, boy, dude. I've seen a lot of these. These have started popping up in Melbourne as well. There's little shops of specifically these. But yeah, wow, this is crazy.
And they have those over there. So the little bits of like shops and stuff that they've got in Melbourne, like next level over in Japan. It's crazy. These are my gachas. They're all in this Miffy bag. That I also got from Japan. But it's almost entirely gachas. There are some claw machine prizes that I won. I won 4 claw machine prizes while I was over there, which is very cool. One of them is this little Mario Kart, and it's a pullback Mario Kart too. So you pull it back,
that's awesome.
It goes. It was very cool. While we're on this shot as well, before we go back to the photos, I actually found Moving Out over there in Japanese.
Goodness. That's amazing.
So this is a game that I got to work on.
Yeah.
And I found it in a shop.
Yeah.
On the stands, on the shelves, and it's all in Japanese. I was looking forward to trying to find this to see if I could see if it was actually stocked anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I knew that this had been released in Japan with, the Japanese writing in the title and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I very specifically went searching for this in a few stores and found it. So very stoked about that. Very exciting, cool thing that I got to buy.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. That's so cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I have probably cooler games that I purchased, but they will come soon.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the photos and videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Pokemon centers.
Yeah.
So this was very cool. This one was in Tokyo. There was also one in Osaka. It was like a couple of minutes walk away from my apartment in Osaka, which was great. This was Zelda. This is Zelda, everybody. This is Zelda. This was a little Zelda stand. Link standing on it, with a bunch of stuff around it. There were some beautiful metal badges that they had at both the Tokyo and Osaka store on display, but both of them were sold out. Unfortunately, so I didn't get them. They were stunning, and I loved them. Yes,
that's
it was very, very cool. That was very cool to see. There's Mario. There's a little Mario stand with a bunch of stuff. That's probably his actual size too. Yeah. These stores were great. Outside the Tokyo, near the Tokyo Nintendo store, was this sort of 8-bit.
Very good. Very good.
3D Mario. Kind of looks like the 8-bit amiibo, Mario amiibo that you can get. Very cool. So this was a gacha machine. Don't worry about the audio for any of these videos, but so this basically, you put your coins in. Every time you do it, that light in the middle actually made like a coin noise. Wow. So it'd be like da-ding, da-ding every time you put one in.
Nintendo gacha machine?
Yes.
That's
and it says like push the button. Insert coin and push the button. So I inserted the coin and pushed the button underneath it. But the button was the light up thing, which doesn't look like a button and doesn't say it's a button. So in this video, you never actually see me get the gachas. But I've got them here. So I managed to get the Famicom and the Super Nintendo D-pads, which I thought was very cool. These were the ones that I didn't want to get. I didn't want to get a D-pad when I got a thing, because I'm like, that's kind of boring. I wanted the buttons, the A, B buttons. But when I got one of each of the D-pads, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, at least I've got a set of D-pads.
That
from
feels
the
a bit better.
So you can see above that you can get essentially the full controller split into 3 pieces. So it's very cool. This is the Osaka store. So I got these from the Tokyo store. They had the machine in Osaka as well, but they were sold out of these. So when I was trying to use up the rest of my cash, my yen cash, I couldn't try and get more of these. Which is fine. So you got some Animal Crossing. Max loved these, my wife.
Are those like real oranges?
Yes. Well, they're like fake real oranges. They're not purchasable, but they're like for some reason there were baskets of fruit. Fake fruit on these stands. Very strange. There is one of my favorite Pokemon. I don't know the name, but I just find it hilarious that there is a Pokemon that's a motorbike with wheels, but it doesn't use the wheels. It just runs. So I had to explain that. I have no idea, but I had to explain that to Max why I found that Pokemon in particular so funny and fascinating. So I got a photo with it. Yes, and then we did a tea ceremony and traditional Japanese sweet making course, which was combined. So this picture, sorry for audio listeners, but it's essentially like a little mochi ball, but slightly different to what a mochi ball actually is, because this is a very old type of traditional Japanese sweet. A little bit different to the mochi ball, but still, your rice-based sort of pudding with red bean inside. But yeah, we made like the flower of Japan, I believe, as one of the things. And then that was all together. We all made the same thing. And then we got like half an hour to make whatever we wanted. And they had a bunch of examples around. One of the examples was a Pikachu, and I was like, I'm going to try and make that. So this was my attempt at making a little Pikachu traditional Japanese sweet.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
mochi
good.
ball type thing. I thought it did all right. Yeah.
It's noticeably Pikachu.
That's right. Yeah. So the hardest part was the ears.
Yeah.
Having to get those to stick on.
Totally.
Maxine made a pig. So that was hers. So yeah, that was really good fun. And then we had the tea ceremony after that, where we ate one of our treats. We could choose which one we wanted to eat. So we kept these ones, and we ate the flowery ones.
Wait, are you married? There's wedding rings here. That's crazy.
There's wedding rings. I know, crazy. We are married now.
That's cool.
We did go to Super Nintendo World as well, which was freaking unreal. So this was in Universal Studios.
I really want to go to Japan for a lot of reasons. I'm jealous of all of this, but this is easily the thing I'm most jealous of.
Yeah. This was so good. This was like one of the first things we talked about when we're like, we can go to Japan, we can go and see Super Nintendo World. Like, we can go there. And pretty much the only time that it rained was when we were going to Super Nintendo World at the exact time that we wanted to go. It didn't rain the entire day. We're at Universal Studios pretty much the whole day. And it rained at our allotted time to enter Super Nintendo World, because you have timed entry. So that not everyone is in Super Nintendo World at the same time. And ours was 7:30 at night, so we could only go at nighttime. Happened to rain the whole time. But honestly, I feel like going here at night was the best
it looks stunning.
Time to go, because it was lit so amazingly. Like, it was so... I feel like it just made it pop so much more.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, it was just lit beautifully. It feels like walking into an actual level.
Yeah, totally.
Into a Mario level. It was stunning. I think there's a shot of me in a second, and just my absolute... my absolute just bewilderment at what I was looking at. There's two levels.
Yeah, wow.
So there were shops and stuff downstairs, and rides and activities upstairs. And then you got the wristband, which I have here. And when you have the wristband, you can like punch all these bricks around the place, and you get the coin noise. And the coins transfer onto the wristband. The wristband does a bunch of other things, which you'll see in later videos, but you essentially collect a bunch of stuff on here, and then there's a QR code on the back that you can scan on the Universal app, the Universal Studios Japan app. And you can see everything that you've done and collected on there.
Very cool.
This is like one of the Mario binoculars. This actually was like, it did show you the world in the background, but it added a bunch of digital...
Yeah, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, you can see like, that brick just there flying past, and there's a bullet bill getting shot, and there's enemies walking back and forth that aren't actually in the world, but it superimposes them onto it, which is very, very clever and very cool. The technology for that was awesome. This was one of the mini games. So you scan your wristband to start it, and then a little Goomba comes over this round hill, and you have to rotate the hill as fast as you can to stop the Goomba from getting over the top of it. And if you rotate it fast enough, then he can't keep up and he falls back. And then you scan the wristband again, and you get a little prize. You get a key. And eventually, when you get enough keys, you get access into this other minigame area where it's a much larger set of minigames. And you essentially have to go and take down Bowser Jr., which is a very cool thing.
That's awesome.
So this is Maxine. This is my wife. She is doing the slots, trying to get... So she started with stars, so she's trying to get all stars.
Oh.
So she's wearing my wristband, little jig, and
she
did it.
She did it. And that's why you married her.
That's right. She loves her little jigs. So yes. So we shared the same wristband for that. This one, I feel like most people didn't get. So there was a bunch of bricks with musical notes on them.
Yeah.
And when you go over and like hit one of them, then it starts lighting up a bunch of different bricks. And if you punch the bricks in the order that they light up, then it starts playing a song. So you see a whole bunch of like... I do a jig too.
Yeah.
You see them all lighting up, and it's the like and that starts playing.
It is raining a lot.
It is, yeah. We were soaked at that point, but we'd been there all day, and it was so... This part of the park was so good that we just stopped caring. Like,
no, totally.
I think our eyes were just so like overwhelmed with everything that we were looking at that the rain didn't matter.
Yeah, totally.
This was the end of the Bowser Jr. thing. You can see Bowser Jr.'s kind of shadow there. And the game was very much a like an iToy type game.
That's cool.
So my silhouette is the little one in the distance.
Yeah.
And yeah, like when you jump up, you jump much higher than you actually do in real life.
You got a fire flower.
It's very cool. Yeah, and then you can throw the fire flower, and you've got to defeat Bowser Jr. So this was a cool game. It was a little bit janky.
Yeah.
But it was very fun, and you know, you're doing it with a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Trying to take down Bowser Jr. together.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was very fun, very cool.
Oh man, I could go to Japan.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What's up next? I think I sent you
stores.
Oh, I didn't send. Okay, so one of the rides we did, I guess I didn't send pictures of the rides, but there was a whole bunch of photos from going into the essentially the Mario Kart ride, which is a very crazy ride. You're in a cart. You have a Mario helmet with a visor that you clip in.
Yeah.
And the visor essentially superimposes digital Mario Kart onto the world that you're going around on this sort of slow on rails like roller coaster thing.
Yeah, right.
So the world is all like the world that you're being taken through in real life is looks like a Mario Kart race. But then superimposed like augmented reality onto the visor was enemies, was like Mario and Luigi and Peach and Toad and stuff driving around as well. And essentially what you had to do as when you were coming up to corners on the track, you had to like actually turn your steering wheel. Turning the steering wheel gave you coins if you turned at the right time. And then you would look at enemies and press a button on the steering wheel which would shoot in the direction that you were looking. Which was very, very clever.
That is very cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
I was not very good at it. I got the amount of points that they said you should try and aim for, which is 100. I got like 106.
Yeah.
Max got like 208.
Oh my goodness.
She really had no idea what was going on. I had to keep trying to explain to her how to play because she was taking so many photos as we were walking to the ride that she missed a lot of the actual explanations.
Yeah.
But she actually crushed it and came second in the group of 8 or 16 people that we were playing with.
Oh wow.
So she did very, very well.
Yeah.
Which was cool. Yeah. So that was the one ride that we went on at Mario World, and it was probably the more adult one. I think there was one or two others, but it was probably more aimed at kids.
Yeah.
But just the overall experience of being there and doing all of these extra activities and stuff was
absolutely. I mean, that's the reason
unreal.
you go. That's the reason you go. It's like even most theme parks. It's like a lot of the rides aren't going to be the most exciting thing ever, but it's like, especially for something like Mario, it's like you got to go for the experience of being in Mario.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, the other rides at Universal were great. We went on like the Spider-Man ride. There was we didn't go on them, but there's multiple Resident Evil rides.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why they were connected to Universal. Maybe they own cinematic rides.
It's probably a
Resident Evil.
Japan deal as well, because like a Japan
Could be, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and then like the rides at Disney Sea were amazing, but I will talk about those on Edo's Catch Up.
Totally.
Cool. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yep.
So there's a whole bunch of vintage video game stores. I think this one is Super Potato, which is probably the more famous one. This was unreal to go to. This was so cool. I went to a few others in Akihabara in Tokyo, but this one's in Osaka because I forgot about Super Potato in Tokyo. There was one there, but I forgot about it and we didn't end up going. So I made sure there was one in Osaka. And this was just so cool to walk around. Like they've got Nintendo 64s and GameCubes that you can just purchase. You can buy any console, essentially, any Nintendo console there. Any console, basically. These were like $60 to $70.
Yeah, wow.
Australian dollars. Like very reasonably priced for what they are. And they're all refurbished.
Yeah.
So it's not just like buying it secondhand off someone. It's buying it from a store that refurbishes them so that they work as best as they can, which is sick.
Yeah, awesome.
The fact that you can get that for $70 is unreal.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is just a bunch of them, but I've got a couple of games that I purchased from here, Ben.
Yes.
One of them, this was pretty much the first game that I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I'm buying that.
Yeah.
It is Pokemon Green.
Oh, wow.
For Game Boy.
Wow.
So I heard about this around the time of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. I found out that in Japan, they had a Pokemon Green as well.
Oh,
it was
really?
Only released in Japan.
That's crazy.
So, you know, Red and Blue, obviously, Charizard and Wartortle? The big one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wartortle. I was like, is that the second or third one? I've forgotten.
Yeah, no one remembers. It's just Squirtle.
Yeah. But
no, Blastoise.
Yeah.
Blastoise.
Blastoise.
Sorry, we were going to get some mean comments if I didn't say that.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. But obviously, I've forgotten his name now too. Man, I'm the worst
Venusaur?
Pokemon guy. Venusaur. I kept thinking Ivysaur. I'm like, I know that's the second one.
Yeah.
Venusaur. I haven't played Pokemon in years. It's been a long time. Venusaur did have his own game, but only in Japan.
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw this, I thought back to like 6-7-year-old Josh being like just absolutely in awe of the idea that there was a Pokemon game that I could not get my hands on because it was only in Japanese.
Yeah.
And I found it. And this was only like $40.
Wow.
So actually buying this, it was in a glass cabinet. There was like a bunch of, Game Boy games in glass cabinet. And I translated some of the text that was written on it. And it said, if you want anything in this cabinet, go ask the staff. So I took a photo of it, went over and pointed and said, I'd like to buy this. Obviously, most people in Japan speak Japanese, not English. So that's why I took the photo.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
And so they just like took a couple of steps over and they had just like long cardboard boxes with just piles of these. So it was just like just a row of Pokemon Green in Japanese, a row of Pokemon Blue, a row of Red, a row of Yellow, just the Game Boy games just in rows of
crazy
of all of these. So it's just such a normal thing over there for them to have this, that it's just sitting around. And they're like, yeah, we have like, 30 of these for sale that you can buy.
Yeah.
And it's only $40. Like, it's probably cheaper than what it would be when we bought this initially.
Totally. It's also just fascinating because, like, there's a finite amount of those in the world, right? Like there's no one's making any more of them. So it's like the fact that they still have so many.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
So I was so stoked to get this. And then there was another game that I saw on the shelves. There's actually one other vintage game, but that's going to be shown in a later podcast when we discuss a certain other game. But this one I was looking at and I was like, I don't know if I should buy this because it was a little more expensive. Not heaps, but it was like, it was $70, which is still a very good price for what this is. But Max was like, I think you need that. Yeah. And I think you'll be disappointed if you don't get it. Yeah. And you won't be back here to buy it for a long, long time. Yeah. So she's like, just get it. Just go for it. It is a boxed copy of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in Japanese.
Oh my.
Still with... So it's been opened, so it's not like, mint condition. Yeah. But it's still got the manual in it. It's still got like the safety information little booklet in it. It's got all the original stuff in it. Yeah. But yeah, it's the original Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for Nintendo 64. And yeah, it was only about $75.
Yeah, good call, Max. I would have if you'd come to this podcast and said that you thought about buying that and then didn't, I would have fired you from this podcast.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah. But yeah, I was so stoked to see this. Javid from Good Blood, and the Hyrule Journals and all that YouTube channel, he recently did an unboxing of a whole bunch of international copies of Zelda games that he acquired between 2020 and now. Yeah. And this was one of them. I reckon he probably paid a lot more than I did for it because he would have had to import it, or it would have been, selling on eBay because it's rare and, from another country. Yeah. All that sort of thing. But yeah, seeing this on a shelf at a relatively affordable price and pretty having remarkable. Seen him open all this stuff, I'm like, holy crap, I can actually own that. Yeah. Yeah. It was unreal. It was so, so cool. I'm so stoked that I got it. I'm excited to show you the other thing. It's probably less exciting than these two games. Yeah. And the game that I got. Yeah. But it relates to a game that we'll be talking about soon. And I'm excited to discuss it. I saw it and was just like, I think purely because of that game, I need to buy this one.
I have an inkling.
And it's a very popular game anyway.
I have an inkling of what it could be, but I'm not going to say my inkling either.
Cool. No worries. Great.
Yep.
Cool. So that was my time in Japan. That was it.
Wow. How long were you there for?
2 weeks.
Wow, that's a big. That's a lot in a couple of weeks.
It was. Oh man, we did so much more. Like that was just. That was just the gaming stuff, which was probably like maybe a quarter of it or less. We did so much. We were exhausted.
Well, if people want to find out what more you did, have you recorded that with Will already, or are you set?
Not yet. I think that'll be next week.
Post PAX.
I asked him whether he wanted to do it like this week, but with PAX coming up, we're like going to take some time off. So maybe early next week we'll record that.
So everyone will probably hear this first. So yeah, keep an eye out for that catch up, and you'll hear all of Josh's other shenanigans, because we only talk about video games here and never anything else, except sometimes Dan Andrews, the Premier of the former Premier of Victoria. Yeah,
we're a video game and politics podcast.
Yeah, that's the callback to like an hour and a half ago.
That's right.
So if you've been listening for that long, thank you. This has been episode 5 of ETTO Sidequest. I was so happy to hear all your stories, and also so sad that they're not my stories, but it's okay. One day they will be. There'll be a follow-up to this Sidequest episode 50.
Get over there, Ben. You will love it. There's probably so much, like there were so many pop culture stores that were mostly like animes and things that I just don't know. Absolutely. So many other things that I'm very unaware of. So there's going to be stuff that I totally missed that a lot of people would get more out of than I would.
Yeah. Well, until that time, not until that time, because we're going to chat way sooner than that. But until that time, we're done with the side quest.
Done it.
We're done it. We don't actually have a mystery topic just yet. Don't actually have a topic for next time just yet, because we're still kind of working it out. Josh just got back, so we'll probably work something out over PAX weekend, over the next little bit, and then we'll share that with you in the ETTO Discord, which you can join by supporting us on Patreon with your little dollars, just a couple dollars, and you can join in.
Patreon.com/each to their own.
Yes, you can join in our side quest discussions. Normally we get your input on this, but none of you had input on Josh going to Japan. Why would you?
Nope.
So yeah, and yeah, if you want to catch more of ETTO, you can also head to Twitch, where we stream semi-regularly. I'm sure Josh and I will probably start streaming again there soon. I don't know what. Yeah. Probably something.
We'll find something.
But yeah, that's it.
Nice. Quest complete. Experience for all.
Wow, you remember this. Oh no, the skateboard, everything's falling apart.
No!
Quest over. It's done.
Quest failed.
It's not, it's succeeded. We succeeded. Bye everyone.